Migration to the USA, Part 2. Some challenges. As mentioned in the first video, until the 1960s, Dominican migration to the United States was limited. Only a few with better economic position had been able to leave the country. However, because of several economic, political, and social changes to the U.S. immigration laws that prioritize family reunification, the number of Dominicans who were able to immigrate to the U.S. increased dramatically between 1980 and 2000. New York became the cradle of the largest Dominican population in the United States. The high concentration of Dominicans in the metropolitan area of the state facilitated access to specific services for immigrants and job opportunities within the community. However, this also presented challenges. Like the Dominicans, the arrival of large groups of migrants of other nationalities increased the competition for jobs and created friction and diminished access to much-needed resources. Living with people from different cultures enriched community life, but also generated clashes in terms of social integration. The city faced economic decline, increased unemployment, and poverty, particularly in minority communities. In the already established neighborhoods, they sometimes saw the new immigrants as a threat to their social and economic stability, and available resources and jobs became scarce, generating tensions and leading to cultural clashes. The poorest sectors experienced an increase in delinquency and crime, and as the number of gangs grew, there was a greater influx of illegal drugs. Stories about violent crimes like homicides, assaults, and robberies kept everyone in a constant state of fear and terror. In many cases, the residents of the neighborhoods created surveillance teams that would watch over the children while they played or went to school. The watch groups also ensured the safety of people going to and from work. In addition, people were encouraged to travel in small groups. The rapid deterioration of living conditions and rising crime caused many businesses to leave the area altogether. So it was common to see entire streets of abandoned buildings, as well as a number of people aimlessly wandering and even living on the streets. With the increasing crime rate, new police tactics were created that in many cases were very aggressive and disproportionately affected the African American and Latino communities, such as the controversial stop and frisk policy. Cases of police brutality were reported, causing confrontations between members of the police and citizens of different nationalities. Several neighborhoods in New York were particularly affected, such as the Bronx, Harlem, and Brooklyn, among others. Many Dominican immigrants found employment in low-wage sectors, such as manufacturing, the service industry, and agriculture. These offered little job security and few benefits. Limited English proficiency resulted in discrimination in their jobs and in public services. Often migrants were treated unfairly or dismissed because of their accent or lack of fluency. Even for those who wanted to learn English, it was difficult as it required extra time and effort, adding even more hours to the already long work shifts. Many workers worked continuous, uninterrupted shifts to earn extra money. Some employers were reluctant to hire immigrants because of the prejudices or assumptions about their skills and qualifications. Dominicans often received unequal treatment and lower wages compared to their native counterparts. Even with exceptional performance, they saw fewer opportunities for promotion and experienced unfair labor practices. Many endured harassment and hostility from colleagues and supervisors, making it difficult to keep employment. Language barriers and unfamiliarity with the United States financial system, making it difficult to access banking services, credit, and loans. Migrants often sent much of their earnings to relatives back in the Dominican Republic. And while this provided crucial support to their families back home, it also reduced the amount of money available for their own living expenses here in the United States. It was a common practice for people to work multiple jobs so they could pay off all their debts at the end of the month. They worked long hours with little rest, but it was necessary to support their families. Some engaged in informal economic activities, such as street vending or providing services with their own communities to supplement their income and save as much as possible. A common practice was to live in apartments or shared housing, dividing the expenses of services such as electric, gas, and rent. One of the resources available that helped in some way to alleviate the financial pressures were community associations as well as religious groups that assisted in the issues of housing, job opportunities, and childcare. Migrants often had to balance their cultural traditions with adopting new practices while adapting to American society. This included changes in social interactions and even financial habits. Dominicans who immigrated were also forced to modify their traditional diet that normally consisted of fruits, vegetables, and meats to a more Americanized diet. The rush of day-to-day life forced a greater consumption of fast foods, processed foods, and sugary drinks, causing an increase in health problems such as obesity, diabetes, and high blood pressure. It was no longer the common practice of enjoying a meal made by mom at home with the whole family. And in cases where several members worked, having a different schedule, there was no opportunity to spend time together, causing distance in the family. It was not uncommon for parents with young children to impose a no Spanish-speaking rule in the home. This was often done to help their children learn English and assimilate more easily into the American society to avoid discrimination. Many parents believe that speaking only English would provide better educational and economic opportunities for the children. Discrimination in the housing market was and continues to be a very real problem among migrants. Many Dominican migrants encountered landlords who were unwilling to rent to them or even charged higher rent based on their ethnicity. It's very sad, but even still today, many of these difficulties continue to be a challenge for Dominicans living in the different states across the U.S. Unemployment, social inequality, and injustices are unfortunately still a part of daily life for many Dominican families and friends living on American soil.